Welcome to the Creature Cast, the official Console Creatures podcast. I'm your host today, Steve Vegvari, and alongside me, as always, my good pal Bobby. How the heck are you today?
Doing pretty beautiful on this gloomy day, Steve. We're just dealing through that last bit of spring weather before the summer hits. So gearing up for a really busy 4 months, I guess we're gonna say.
Sure.
Next 4 months are
busy eternity. Yeah, why not? Yeah. And it's a very special episode because we are joined by, I don't feel like I need to introduce him, but I will anyways. Victor Lucas, Electric Playground. Happy to have you back on the show. Yeah.
This is awesome. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's a very special
both
one.
of your faces.
Yes, exactly.
I'm a very special episode of Blossom right now.
Yeah. No, it's a very special one because I feel like, Bobby kind of alluded to it. We're right on the cusp of Summer Game Fest, but we're also on the cusp of the Switch 2 releasing. And what better time to, kind of go back in time. It's hard to believe it's been 8 long years since the release of the original Switch back in 2017. So Bobby and I kind of put this idea together. We're going to do a 2-part kind of retrospective, looking back at the original Switch, going through the motions of it, the highs, the lows, the mids, and just kind of break it down and kind of give our, shared experiences. We've reached out to the community as well, got some stories and anecdotes about how they feel about the evolution of the Switch, some great memories. And Victor, we're happy to have you here as well, because we've all been covering the Switch to certain degrees, wide and, so some shallow stories as well. But it's great to have you here to get your perspective as well. And it's going to be a great episode.
It's my favorite console ever. I love the Switch, and it was a dream come true when that machine came out. So I'm happy to be here to celebrate it, to toast it, and to see it off. It's kind of sayonara Switch.
Right. And I feel like they're going to continue supporting it to some degree, but it really does feel like, we're reaching this moment where it is Nintendo is going to be pushing this thing hard. I feel like it's a great generational leap for Nintendo, something that I don't feel like we get all too often. Going back maybe between, especially between the Wii to the Wii U, it didn't really feel like we're hitting this big generational gap between performance and fidelity. Same with the Wii U to the Switch. It kind of felt like, okay, it's just kind of more of the same, maybe different technology with different hardware. But this, playing it, we all went hands-on with it a month ago or so, and playing Donkey Kong Bonanza, it felt like, oh, this is next-gen Nintendo. And something that I'm not really used to ever saying.
I mean, they didn't really get the full third-party support that we all wanted out of Nintendo Switch 1.
Yeah.
Because I think developers just couldn't split focus and sort of tier a version of their game for the Nintendo Switch as it sort of was proposed to the public. But with Switch 2, because it's got VRR and 120 hertz screen technology and HDR, and it can output at 4K. It's got DLSS technology. It is going to be a go-to for a lot of developers that sat out the first time, and I think that is the truly remarkable story about Nintendo Switch 2. It's going to have the awesome, capabilities of Nintendo's first-party teams, and then all of this third-party support that wasn't there for Switch 1. I think it's going to introduce games to hardcore Nintendo only purists out there that they missed out on, and that's very exciting. So I'm super big on Switch 2. I think it's going to rock. It's the first time Nintendo's ever sequelized a console, and I made a video about that a year ago or 2 years ago now, saying that this is the right move, Nintendo. Don't try to confuse your audience. Don't even I thought Super Switch would have been a great title for it too. I love the Super Nintendo. I did a whole sort of analysis on how the sales went on each console generation, and they were doing a lot of this all the way along.
Absolutely.
I think the way to combat that is to make it as clear as day that this is an iterative next stop on this track that people are familiar with. And I know it makes the story less exciting for us and for the hardcore players out there that are following every single incremental decision that's happening across the industry, but for the regular people, which makes up a bulk of the Nintendo sort of ownership out there, they don't have time to learn about all the minutiae. They just want to know they're getting some a lot better, and they are.
And that's true. I mean, the 2 just means, hey, what you already know and love, you're just getting more of it.
And that's all it needs to be.
Very well for PlayStation. Very, very. You know, they've had events where they've gone our new PlayStation, and they've just shown a logo. Our new PlayStation is the PlayStation 4. And
Yeah.
they just come out.
All you need.
Yeah. And people go, ooh, oh, okay. I know a bigger number means more fun, I guess.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
it saves a lot of frustration from parents. Like I know young parents right now who don't play games, and they're just like, well, for example, like we all know the Xbox Series X and the S, and that caused a lot of confusion when it launched. And
Yeah,
someone with a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, like they don't care. They just want to get whatever their kid's asking for. And I had a lot
the
of
branding on Xbox is all over the map. It's very hard to figure out if you're not like paying attention.
Yeah, and it was just like that messaging was so confusing that I had friends just buying the Xbox Series X when they're trying to just buy the base model.
I mean, this is its own show, guys. Like the Vita was a terrible name. Like it should have been the PSP2. Sony took they didn't learn from their own lessons that it's the PlayStation Portable 2. I mean, that's what it was. It should have been called that. Yeah. The Nintendo 64 was a terrible name. Like it only mattered to nerds, like 64. What the hell does that mean?
And no one cared.
Yeah,
no one cared.
Yeah, no one cared, and it didn't sell very well. No. The GameCube was on the nose, but it was maybe counter to the extreme kind of power of the other guys, and it didn't sell what it should have. It was an amazing machine.
Yep.
It kind of was the Dreamcast of Nintendo's era, wasn't it? Yeah. And then the Wii was excellent brand and excellent story. The Wii U was terrible. I mean, a great machine, but a terrible name. I remember Reggie was on Jimmy Fallon talking about the Wii U, and he said, "Oh, so you just hook up the gamepad to your Wii?" And he went, "Oh, no, it's a new machine. It's a new system." And he had to explain it to the host of like one of the biggest mass market talk show hosts out there, and you just knew. I mean, that's destined for failure. Now, the Switch was an excellent brand, and the Snap was an excellent idea.
The Snap was such a great little cherry on top. Everyone kind of understood the refinement coming off of the Wii U, where and I think this is a great like jumping off point of talking about like the launch era where Nintendo was at like a very dark point coming out of the Wii U. Like there was great software, don't get me wrong, but pushing the hardware, having that narrative of why households, families needed this thing, felt like an impossible task at the point. But yeah, coming out and that reveal event, that presentation, and just saying, like having the Snap, having the iconography, like the logo of the Switch was so beautiful because it did really become emblematic of what the Switch was. It's a handheld, it's a console, you put it in the dock, you can take the Joy-Cons off. It really did. They really did show everything that they needed to within that one event. And I mean, the numbers prove it. It has gone on to become like one of the most best-selling consoles, pieces of hardware out there. And
I think it will become that. I think
so.
It's eventually.
Yeah.
But just to go back to that notion of the Wii U. I mean, I skipped that generation completely. I was so burnt out by what they were trying to sell us, and I was like I don't have interest in this. Like it's just a tablet now. We don't need a tablet. I just wanted to play games.
Yeah.
This whole thing with the tablet just felt like it was just like a gimmick. And
you missed out. You missed out, Bobby. There was some cool stuff on the Wii U.
Captain Toad.
Right? Like I remember playing everything through like a relative. Like they had the system. I had stopped by. I play it. I thought it was cool, but like it didn't resonate with me. Yeah. Thankfully,
it was too much. And honestly, that was the fear, I think, with Switch as well when it was launching. Like we didn't know until we played it and then eventually got review units and started to get into the software. We didn't know that it was all going to come together. I mean, the video reveal, which was shot in Vancouver, by the way, so there's all these familiar landmarks.
Yeah.
And so it looked cool, but it also looked like, man, you have to like remember where all your stuff is when you go out with your Switch. Like it looked like it could just fall apart, and there's like pieces of it all over, which kind of gamified the whole idea of what the console. It almost turned it into like collect your stuff and put your package together and go out with it, which is kind of cool. But who knew that it was going to be that seamless in that? It wasn't until that Toronto event. I don't know if you guys were there in 2017. No. Nintendo had a launch event, in Toronto, and I think they had similar things in LA and New York.
Okay.
Where they invited press to come out and play the games for the first time, and they had it all decked out with these cool booths. And they gave you an idea of what it was like to ride in an airplane, and they handed you a Switch to play Mario Kart.
That's smart.
Yeah. It was unbelievable, you know. And then they had, of course, they were popping the Joy-Con into people's hands and getting them to do the motion control stuff, which I thought was kind of kitschy and cool. But I know that that's not the way that as a player I'm going to spend a lot of time. But the setup of having all of these different locations was unbelievably cool, and everybody was very impressed. And I remember leaving that event, and I think we were still a month away, and I was interviewing a bunch of people that attended, and all of us were like, holy crap, this really is going to work. This is a really cool thing. You can take that Zelda Breath of the Wild magnificent open world experience off of your machine and just go anywhere with it.
Yeah.
Groundbreaking. Absolutely amazing. And
I remember
Wii U had that game too, but you had to be at home.
Well, that's the thing. And I remember the Wii U era, and everyone, as soon as you saw the tablet, you were thinking to yourself, okay, well, there's almost that bridge, right? A bridge between the console and the handheld experience. That's what I want. I want to be able to take my games on the go, similar to, you brought it up earlier, the Vita. The Vita was so close again, and it wasn't until the Switch came out and really was that proving product where it's like, no, you can have a game that runs, that is as robust as Breath of the Wild, take it off of your living room console, bring it with you to a friend's place, take it with you on an airplane, and it runs just the same. Very few concessions.
We have to thank Apple for all this, by the way. You know, we have to thank the iOS store and Apple saying, you know what, we can put video games on our devices.
Right.
And I can remember flying to E3 with the first iPhone. I think it might have been the 3G or something like that. It was an early iPhone. I can't even remember which one. Sure. But the App Store was available, and Monkey Ball was one of the first games. Digital Eclipse made a Monkey Ball port, and it was excellent. And you would tilt the iPhone to kind of roll the ball down all the puzzles and stuff. It was just perfect. And I thought to myself, this is going to devastate handheld gaming. This is going to change everything. The accessibility, the availability, the preponderance, the proliferation of phones that everybody's going to have. You just knew that this was not going to stay here. It was going to go all over the mobile space like crazy, and it was going to explode. And it did. And so the Wii U was Nintendo's first answer to that. And it was about, like, we don't want people on their phones playing our games, so let's make another screen that they will look at, so they're not looking at their phones and they're not thinking about mobile games. And it was clever, but it was hampered. But the Switch was that distillation of mobile experiences, but you can also plug them into a television, and making it not only easy but fun and cool and a part of the branding, like part of the whole mystique. And I can't imagine how many millions of people bought one of those that year and just were eager to show it off to their friends and family. Like, look at this, we're playing it here, and they could just put it in the dock, and it's on the TV. Look at how cool that. And it was just so simple. And imagine that scene playing out over and over and over again, and the kind of viral sales that happened just out of that. Not let alone the software. And the software is the real story, because they not only launched this machine with this great idea, but they really delivered in terms of games.
Yeah, they did. I mean, launch series. They had Breath of the Wild 1, 2, Switch, and then what I think that they did very, very smart, and I feel like every publisher or console manufacturer needs to really be doing, is looking at the indie space, because Nintendo captured that right off the bat and said, no, we want your small games, knowing the limitations of the Switch. We want your games here, because really we can't be running the top AAA games on our hardware. So we're going to go after the indie space, the AA space, and then propel it with our own first party games like a Mario, like a Zelda. And that was just, in my opinion, one of the most brilliant moves in Nintendo that whole generation.
100%.
Revitalized the indie scene, I feel like. I mean, I'm not going to say, like, PlayStation did a really good job, fostering indies up until a certain point. And, once the people, in that program left, I mean, it was just kind of up in the air, I feel. And then Nintendo just came in swinging in 2017. We had
Xbox was always doing a great job with indies as well, right?
Yeah,
They-
Xbox, yep.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
a great program, but like I don't feel like a lot of people knew about it. Like I was aware of this because we deal with Xbox, we deal with a lot of PR firms and stuff, but the average person didn't know about it. Like if I could ask any of my friends what I did Xboxes, they would have no clue.
Well, it's antithetical to the way they sell those platforms, guys. Like the PlayStation and the Xbox are about beefy horsepower, and all the ads when they do the montage of the types of games you're going to get on there, they're all state of the art, beautiful, awesome cut sequences and fast action that honestly you couldn't really do on the Switch. And I think the Switch not only was the right horsepower, but the idea that these sort of smaller, quote unquote, or more bite-sized types of games, a lot of them super cute, just made a tremendous amount of sense being on this super cute little portable device that you could bring everywhere with you. And it was, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I was always, if there was an opportunity to review an indie game, I would ask for the Switch, always the Switch code. And I bought tons of great indie games along the way. And it started with, I think, Fast RMX, which we're getting a sequel on Nintendo Switch 2. I think that was one of the early ones. I had this amazing experience as well in 2017 when that machine launched, and it was pretty freaking cool. What was it? The Canadian, one of the Canadian film groups offered Electric Playground to go to MIPCOM, to the big TV festival, and go and talk with television creators out there. A lot of them were Canadians and stuff, and had documentaries and things. We used to cover that kind of stuff all the time, and I still do from time to time as well. But that was a really cool opportunity. And the Switch had just come out, and I went with my colleague Blake Siefkin. And it was in the south of France, and they were covering the travel, and they were putting us up in a hotel. But it was a lot of travel. So it was flying into London, and we may have stopped somewhere else along the way, because generally that's how we've done it with EP, is like we maximize our time if we ever have to go somewhere to get stories. But we landed in London and trained to Paris, and then trained from Paris to Cannes. And we were on buses and trains and planes, and it was just amazing. And brand new Switch owners just downloaded a cavalcade of like indie software and all the launch stuff that we had playing, of course, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild a lot, but all of those reviews along the way we were posting on the channel that whole way. And that was just an amazing trip to discover what a fantastic idea this whole concept was, and how much more this was useful for the way that we have always produced EP, because EP has always been visit the studios and shoot out in the run and shoot all over the damn place. And so that really set the tone. And quite frankly, and I've said this in EP content before, but I've reviewed games from the field my whole career. Like when I would host with Tommy, we'd shoot in LA or San Francisco for a meeting there, or Dallas or whatever. And then when I started working with Scott, he was originally in New York City, and so we'd fly into New York and we'd find anyways, we were always bringing consoles with us no matter where. So like full big ass consoles, PlayStations and Xboxes and old Nintendo, wherever we had to go, and companies would have to FedEx us the games wherever we were landing to play them, and then we'd go and talk about them. But here was this unbelievably svelte little machine that was the whole core experience, and we could plug into TV sets all over the damn place and play on anywhere. It was profound, and that's when I fell in love. That was it. I was like, oh my god, this is like a dream come true. I don't have to deal with all the bullshit. You guys have no idea how many customs people are like, why are you bringing your Xbox? What is that?
I've gotten
paid for that.
Absolutely. Victor, Bobby, I'm sure both of you have had this experience, and something that has become almost like a tradition for me is always, we're traveling and doing stuff, and all the time I go onto, whether or not it's Twitter or now Threads, Bluesky or whatever, and I just say, like, I have a trip coming up. What's something I need to play on Nintendo Switch right now? And the amount of people that will jump and be excited about recommending the small little indie, something that I might have missed. Like that's the whole reason. Like Celeste had been a game that I had missed for, I would probably say like a good year, maybe a year and a half after it had originally come out. And someone just said,
Yep.
if you haven't played Celeste, you've got to try this. And I booted it up on the Switch and I fell in love. And it's just one of those things that, yes, and we can talk about it a little more, but like the eShop is just such a treasure trove of great little games, as well as, you know, the first party and second party stuff as well. But
A lot of crap too.
And that's the big thing, is that there's a lot there that will force its better games to go unnoticed because there's just too much on there. But having the community be excited about indies on the Nintendo Switch has always been something that I've always gone back to, because it always feels like there's something new, something exciting that might just go under the radar unless you talk to the right people, which is the online community.
Yeah,
I think it was lightning in a bottle with the Switch. I don't know if that continues with Switch 2. I don't know.
I don't think it'll be as, you know, intense, but there's no way it's going to disappear. People are always, you know, open to talking about games. You just got to find what people want to talk about and where. And like there are still, you know, those little communities. It's just they've moved from one site to another, and I do find them on Bluesky. I see them pretty frequently if you go to the Discover tab, and you know, people are just talking about games they're playing, and I see still a lot of love for Celeste and you know, Hollow Knight, and those games are two of the biggest sellers on the Switch, surprisingly, right? I mean, just that community's there. It's just we gotta, you know, look for it now instead of it being right in front of us the entire time. And
do you guys play Children of Morta?
Oh, I love Children of Morta. It was fantastic,
amazing. And Moonlighter.
Moonlighter's great. Love that.
Yeah. Yes.
Owlboy.
Yep.
Yeah. The one that's always stuck out for me was when we first had like our review units. I had a trip to New York to do some work with Fox, and Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap was like this.
Oh yeah, it was so good.
It was so good, but like it was just the fact that I had this brand new console. I had Breath of the Wild, I had Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and I had Wonder Boy on there. And my flight, normally I would have, you know, I mean, this is like not the best way to waste my time anymore. I used to read books. Now it was like the Switch came with me, and having that
who needs books?
I know, right?
Books are for suckers.
Books are for nerds, Bobby.
I know. But like that, you know, that just like the fact that, you know, I switched over, it was just like, it was great. Like I was playing.
You switched.
I switched like that. But having like that whole version of Hyrule on the plane with me was so mind blowing. And then, you know, halfway through my flight, I switched to Wonder Boy, and like for the next 45 minutes, like I was
no, it's a great bet.
We gotta snap. We gotta do the snap every time.
Every time.
It's just like these. It was like I don't know. It's just like a core memory for me with the system now, because like 8 years later, I've played hundreds of games on the Switch, but the first 5 or 6 games are the most memorable to me, and that's like Snipper.
100%.
1-2 Switch. Super Bomberman R was probably one of the best launch titles to come out, and Fast RMX. Everything after that. Great, but like it's just like that you know, that it's like a new car smell. You remember the first time you get in your car, the first time you drove.
I am going to counter that with 2023's games on Switch, and I won't even remember them, but I tallied these up in a tweet a while ago. Published by Nintendo, and this is why the Switch. I mean, we're getting deep into the Switch library by that point, but. This is why the Switch kicked ass. It wasn't just that launch year, which shocked the whole bloody world. And, you know, frankly, you know, mobile gave birth to the idea of Wii U, and then Switch gave birth to the idea of Steam Deck and ROG Ally and all the other stuff that's happening right now. And whatever the next PSP is, and the Xbox handheld. We're never, I think, going to move away from this idea of a handheld device that's super powerful that you can plug into other things, or maybe put a headset on and you're into the same space and it's wider or whatever. But in 2023, which we were all feeling, all of us, I mean, even prior to that, but it was like, okay, Switch 2, we're ready. You know, when's it going to be? Okay, Nintendo, it's been time. I love the Switch. Let's go. You know. They released Tears of the Kingdom, Super Mario Brothers Wonder, Metroid Prime Remaster, Stealth Drop, Pikmin 4, Fire Emblem Engage, Bayonetta Origins, Super Mega. That's third-party stuff. They had Advance Wars. They had F-099, I think, came out in 2023. It was just like boom, boom, boom. And they went across their whole suite, every single character that they have. And they had a game for us in 2023.
I also remember that was the year where it was like month by month by month. And I've never seen like a first or even like a second party lineup like that. That's so strong at the end of a console generation. And to your point, at that point, I had already been like, I spent COVID with my Switch. I'm kind of over it. I don't need it anymore. Like I need something new in my life.
But got Steam Decks, Exactly.
Let's see what's next. You look at the lineup and you see, February, March, April, May, and go through it, and you're like, I don't know how they do this. Like I don't know how they keep up with this at such a clip.
And none of the other guys can.
No.
And don't. Like they're all so busy trying to like hit it out of the park with a 4-quadrant blockbuster that costs $500 million. And, if it doesn't work, the company's out of business. Nintendo is whoosh, 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 whoosh. And you're like, Jesus Christ, I can't keep up with all of these amazing games. But I do want to talk a little bit about the Steam Deck and what now that has not necessarily on a competitive kind of, basis, because the Steam Deck's just a tiny little chunk of what Switch 2 is going to sell. But the Steam Deck really has evolved into the indie darling device. Like I've gone to events, and I know you guys have too, where developers are showing off their games early. You guys are putting one on, or you're a part of one that's coming up pretty soon, right?
Yes, sir.
What's it called?
Pixel Power Play.
Right. And I guess my guess would be that you'll see a few Steam Decks at this thing, where people are going to be, the developers are going to be showing off their games on Steam Decks. That was unbelievably eye-opening for me, because I've gone to things and it's just been like wall-to-wall Steam Decks. And of course, everybody's developing on PC, and they just ported right to another little PC. But I feel like the other major thing with Switch 2 is that they're going to do everything they can, Nintendo and its partners, to show that the Switch 2 can keep up with the other guys. And so now it's not just first party, it's also third party AAA in this space, launching day and date with Xbox and PlayStation on Switch 2. And so indie, is going to have to fight for those eyeballs a lot more on the Switch.
I think so. And we talked about it briefly on the show earlier, but Bobby, you and I were both in agreement that once we saw Cyberpunk running on Switch 2, it was kind of game over then. It was like anything can feasibly now be coming over to the Switch 2. And not only come over eventually, but be there almost day one.
Right. Plus, Nintendo's into their GameCube era on Switch 2. And that library, and so that opens up Wii and DS and 3DS. So we're into the 3D experiences as backwards compatible stuff on this platform. The indies are really going to have to fight, but I feel like developers should be talking with Nintendo to be better curators on the eShop and to do a better job at finding ways. Like they should have a top Nindies section or whatever on the eShop where they're really celebrating.
They used to have the whole Nindies showcases.
Well, they have the showcases, but like on the eShop, like they need to propagate and really help to guide people to the good stuff.
What I'm more alluding to is like they have that format. They should just like you're saying, like bring it to the Switch eShops and like get rid of all the shovelware, because honestly, my biggest thing with that eShop was just there was just so much trash on there that
it's slow and trash filled. It's like doubly not fun.
The only way I could use it if I go on my computer and physically browse one by one through what's there, and that's the only way, because even using it on my Switch, like it was so frustrating.
Yeah, you go into the great deals and you have to weed through. Like, how many pages can you survive? Like maybe 5.
I go 5 or 6. I'm like, I can't do it anymore. I can't. It's not worth my time.
I mean, Steam's garbagey too. Like Steam is loaded with so much junk.
And PlayStation's the same thing. Right? Like that's kind of the big thing that all these stores are facing now is the shovelware, and and it really comes down to is having people in these companies curate the stores. Like, why is there no curation? Like, it just anyone can throw something into the store. Like, that doesn't seem right to me. It's just, it's not consumer friendly.
And dudes, like the AI onslaught is coming. We're gonna get we're gonna get the AI slop games
Slop, yeah.
like crazy. And,
We've already got them. It's just now they're
yeah.
gonna be dozens of every week now instead of whatever it was before. It's just it's just like I feel like this new generation for Nintendo needs to be about finesse and just really honing their image for the next 7-8 years, because they did a good job setting themselves up from the Wii U to the Switch. Now it's time to show, really what this system's about, and it's about quality.
Curation is the key.
Yeah, curating your image now, like just.
And honestly, they should work with media organizations.
100%.
To kind of create lists and to put the GameSpot collection of their favorite games and the IGN and whatever.
Right.
Like, I would love to do something like that with EP, and I'm sure you guys would as well. I think it'd be great to kind of point people to good things and just make that super fun. Steam does a little bit of that. I think they find specific curators to kind of guide people to some good stuff. I think the Switch was kind of a victim of its own success in a way, wasn't it?
Well, because everyone wanted their game there, obviously, and everyone saw a little bit of success from the indies, and they're like, "Well, I deserve a piece of the pie because I can make a game, I can publish it," and because games or game creation, game development has become so accessible to a certain degree, I think that's ultimately the failure of the industry, is now allowing far too many people with an imagination or a noteworthy idea to now be able to create their game, put it on a platform, and almost feel like they deserve a place on the shelf, where there should be some sort of threshold. Again, this goes across every platform, but some sort of like quality threshold to say, well, if you don't tick these boxes, unfortunately, we just can't put you on our platform. And I think for Nintendo, they would be smart to almost have a seal of approval of saying, like, if you're on the eShop,
I wonder what happened to
we
that.
stand by your game. Yeah.
We haven't seen that seal in years, and like, honestly, I feel like that was a good way to deter people from just throwing slop on a console and calling it a day. And there is an opportunity now. Like, you're setting yourself up for the next, like I said, 7 to 8 years. Go in arms swinging, put up all your best people, curate the store. The hardware will sell itself. You've got the people who want to, create games for your console. So just be their support them.
Yeah. Now, I do want to talk about some of the more wacky Nintendo choices throughout the Nintendo Switch era, because there were some pretty wild ones that I think some people might have already forgotten, whether or not it's, Labo, whether it's, the creation of ARMS. There was also Ring Fit was a huge one for me. I loved Ring Fit, and I would love to see that game return in some sort of fashion for Nintendo Switch 2. I thought that, Nintendo's use of gyroscope of motion and stuff like that really opened up their ability to get really crazy with some accessories, some peripherals. The fact that they were even able to create some sort of like pseudo VR experience blew my mind.
Were you guys there for the event with Bill Nye? Because I remember it. It was pretty well received, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I liked it.
For Labo?
For Labo, yeah.
It was pretty cool. It obviously was pretty, I don't want to say low budget, but I mean, like, it was like a very budgeted experience. I have to stick with it. It's a budget thing. But like, I did like the robot kit, and there was the toy car garage. Like, I love that stuff. Like, it's Nintendo doing what Nintendo does. Like, they always just have some kind of gimmick with their system, and it just follows tradition for what Nintendo's always known to do, right? It's just
Nintendo's always looked outside of the screen. They've always thought about the cultural impact of their art, and they've thought of different ways to engage play. And they've, I think, in some ways, kind of struggled to get out of there, because they've had so much success, and they've attempted lots of interesting ideas over the years, like the scale for Wii and Wii Music and all kinds of different things, even the bongos for you know,
Oh yeah,
jungle.
I remember the
What was it?
control.
DK Jungle. I forget. What
Donkey
it's called.
Konga.
Donkey Konga. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like I think they've understood that play can exist beyond video games as we've known them. And I think Labo was a really clever idea, but it almost becomes, it's almost like with the musical instrument, the Rock Band thing. Like that idea is bigger than the confines of the console that it's attached to. It's almost its own new console. And to see something like that become successful, I don't think you can treat it as a peripheral to something else. You almost have to go, well, this is our new game device, and you can create stuff with cardboard, and there's an interactive play thing in there. Like I don't think you can dabble. It's the same thing with the Mario Kart RC experience that they worked on with Velant or whatever, the where you could have the Mario Kart on your living room floor racing around. That was amazing. But
I still have mine right behind me. I honestly think that was a great way to bring Mario Kart to people who were not familiar with it, because like I did have some
but
friends.
you can't just do one and then that's it. You know, you got to go, well, this is we're creating a new division in our business, and they're going to stay on this. It's almost like you create a VR headset in a way, right? Like you just can't come out with like 3 things for it. You got to go, well, this is our new console. And when you sell a remote control Mario Kart to somebody, you're like opening a door, and it's like, okay, well, we're going to continue on, and there's going to be new tracks, and you can buy other RC cars. And what we envision is like there are going to be 12 of them in a gym, and people are going to be racing them around. I mean, that'd be freaking crazy. And we're going to make a whole television series about it. And we're going to show people become grand champions racing around with the RC Mario Karts. You can't just sort of like dip your toe in when you're that big of a business and just hope it's going to go. Like, you really got to go. And I think that they learn that lesson again and again. Like, I think a lot of peripheral prospects or projects learn that again and again. And frankly, I think that's what happened with Rock Band and Guitar Hero. Like, those things should not have been tethered to game consoles. They were game consoles. They were devices that, like, especially in the era of smart apps on television sets, this is what I don't understand. It's like, sell the songs and the apps, or have the apps be downloadable for free, sell the peripherals, and let people link their Spotify or their Apple Music accounts to it, and let them just download that music and go crazy. Find a business there, but don't attach it to the game consoles.
Yeah.
And in a way, I think Ring Fit, I think, was smallish enough of an idea that it could exist in its own kind of space. And they'll probably do another Ring Fit for Switch 2. It's different technology.
Hope so. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of room for potential. And I think what they already had on the original Switch was leagues ahead of what I ever thought that they would even do. That was cool. With to create like an RPG fitness game and then actually have it.
Did really put you out of breath.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I'll never forget going to the hands-on demo for that. And I was sweating. And then the funniest part is that, I got that. I fell in love with it, got it on my own, played a ton of it. And then I went to one of their fall events, and then they just casually had it there where people could try it. I was like, oh, Godspeed, man in jeans right now. That's I was like, okay.
It was a great thing in COVID. I did it pretty consistent. Like, I remember for the first 6 months, just because, like, everything was closed.
Yeah.
I did lose about I think it was about 10 kilos, which was
that's great.
Amazing, man.
Months, right? And like, people don't think that a video game can do that, but like Nintendo Ring Fit was like we said,
Bobby, you did that. You did that. You showing 100%. Up and did 100%. The discipline to do that. You did that,
100%. But it was just like the fact that I could gamify losing weight in a way that it's never been done before, and nothing's been able to replicate it since.
No.
Yeah.
The closest thing are a couple obviously VR things, but like Nintendo
Connect
perfected it on the first try. If we get the same thing,
I just think of these smart glasses and fitness. That's going to be crazy.
It's going to be crazy. Yeah.
That is going to be crazy. People are going to be they're going to have Jarvis telling them, you know, it's, I mean, we're not ready. Like the robots are going to have us in good shape.
Hey, I can't wait. Whip me into shape. I'm ready for it. If that's what AI can do,
It is
get me
time to
jacked,
get out, you
I'm
lazy
down.
ass.
Yeah,
Go for a walk.
yeah.
You have been sitting for 15 hours. Get off your ass and go outside.
Yeah, if it's what my watch does, where it just like reminds me, hey, time to stand up, but it will chastise me and make me feel bad about myself, I'm here for it.
Yeah, it'll give you a little shock that you're not moving enough. Like that's the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Wait a sec. Do you guys have kids though? Do you have kids, or do you have
No.
kids in? No, because I have my daughter who's been my litmus test for all this stuff, and we did the labo together, and we did one or two things, and then she lost interest right away, and I'm like, okay, that's not going to be a success. And then we did the Mario RC kart. I forget what it's called, Mario Kart Championship or something like that. Super cool. We were both like, wow, this is amazing. And then we charged it. We did it for like 2 or 3 days, and then we just put it away. You know, like we just didn't keep going back to it. And I think that's the secret, is like you can't just launch the device and the nifty cool thing. You got to have like here's the next year of plans around this. You know, you can't wait for the pickup on it. You have to kind of have to guide people into thinking they need this in their life all the time, because it's entertainment with an ongoing purpose. You know.
Well, and I think that's a great segue into something I was going to talk about right after, which is Nintendo finally showed that they have what it takes to do ongoing games and almost live service games to a great degree. Whether you're looking at Mario Kart 8 Deluxe or Super Smash Brothers, they held on to the popularity of bringing people back into their live games, their online games. Whether you know, we can criticize their online infrastructure all we want, but they made people get excited about, hey, I love these characters. I'm coming back for a competitive online game, and I'm sticking through it all the way through. Mainly, like with respect to Mario Kart, start to finish, but you know, Mario or Smash to a lesser degree, but they held on to that whole, you know, showing up. Here's a character or a fighter reveal. Here's the map. Like Sakurai worked overtime.
Yeah, like that was probably the greatest thing that I feel like every few months we get like a brand new character. There would be so much hype and speculation. Like it was just like a guessing game every 3 or 4 months, and it's like it brought people together in a way I feel like very few fighting games ever have. And like I could never see Street Fighter doing that. I could never see Tekken. Super Smash Brothers is like the one brawling / fighting game that everyone I know plays. Everyone I know has a specific character they love. Everyone I know has their own theories about this world and these characters and how they've all come together. It's unlike anything else that exists in the market. And
I have been covering Nintendo through the release of all of these Smash games, and we got a lot of shit for reviewing an early one and not really understanding it, and because it just felt so incongruous, it just felt so bizarre. It was, especially in the context. It's a super bizarre idea, but subsequent, I think it was the Wii release and the 3DS release, that it was like very eye-opening for me that these games are just the ultimate fan service. They're just this idea of just dumping all of this love into one experience. And I think Smash Brothers Ultimate for Switch was like the zenith of that. It was like, holy crap, how do you ever compete with this? Like the amount of care and love and thought and all the themes and all the different character reveals. I mean, it makes you stumble thinking, like, the poor developers that have to top this, just like Mario Kart 8, and it looks like World will, but the whole way along is like, how the hell do you beat this game? Like, what could you possibly do? Like, the pressure on the people working on the sequel to this, I can't even conceive of that, you know? And I guess that's part of it. Like, I guess if you were trying to do Fortnite 2, it would be kind of similar, right? Like if you were or Destiny 3 at this point, right?
Well, now. I mean, look at Overwatch, for instance, and that's a much lesser degree, but you try to go after chasing that high, and then you just end up stumbling out of the gate because people have already reached the threshold of excitement, engagement, and everything like that, and then you really can't top yourself. And to that same point, Counter-Strike 2. You look at so many of these games that try to just up the ante or do
Yes.
change it to such even a minor degree, and the audience goes, "No, this isn't it." And yeah, to your point, Victor, like
I think that's the
I'm
concern with
scared.
Switch 2, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think that's what people have. It's like, what if it doesn't hit like Switch 1? I think that is, and that's a very understandable kind of question that everybody has right now,
Sure.
and we don't know, right? Like, the appetite feeds the future, right?
Yeah.
If the Switch 2 doesn't sell like crazy, the devs won't be there, and it's like you fulfill the prophecy as a fan. You know, I think I hope players out there kind of understand this. You know, like the costs might be high and
Mhm.
there might be more competition out there, but if you want Switch 2 games, you need to support the Switch 2. I mean, it's a really simple equation, and if people do, then it will carry on, but it might not hit the highs of the Switch 1 because of how uniquely positioned the Switch 1 was when it came out, you know, and
Yeah.
how less of a shock Switch 2 is, but it's everything I've wanted out of the Switch now, right? Like that's what's so
Absolutely.
cool about the Switch 2. Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely spot on in that you look at Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and that game, was a simple port. It was a simple upgrade to an existing Wii U game, and it sold. It was like one of the number one Switch games all throughout the generation. And to your
Yeah.
point, they got to a certain part in that console generation. They're like, oh yeah, maybe we should do more maps. Maybe we should just keep this going. And like that is inconceivable to so many other publishers, so many other developers out there, years and years and years after originally launching their game, to be like, no, actually, we're going to support this. The players are here. They're showing up. They're buying the game month over month. It's
Yeah.
still selling really well. Let's actually give this community
and
something to bite on.
And having it bundled in along with Animal Crossing DLC
Yes.
and the classic consoles on Nintendo Switch Online,
Yep.
people just dump on these subscription services, and I know that they're potentially eating the lunch of development and the sort of traditional ownership kind of ideas around video games. But in terms of value for the money, Jesus, it's amazing. Like just the all that DLC for Mario Kart, all that DLC for Animal Crossing, playing these classic games again. I mean that's the like it's been software that has really sealed the deal for Switch.
Sure.
You know, we wouldn't be talking about this thing with such love and appreciation if the games weren't there. You know, and if Nintendo hadn't support, I mean, it goes hand in glove with how the sales kept building and growing, and Nintendo was looking around at the rest of the sort of gaming landscape and saying, okay, maybe we position for subscription now, like everybody else is, and but the games were there. They just kept coming and coming. And part of that equation is this breadth of titles that stretch across the generations of Nintendo love that we have, the Nintendo love that we all have, you know? And they did a great job. And I still think they do a great job of just like sprinkling little pixie dust, you know, like they'll drop a trailer with 3 weird, obscure NES games. And it's like, oh shit, I get to play those things again.
Yep.
You know, I've never heard of this. I want to play that, you know? And I think that's in a way that's because it's tied to a subscription and an ongoing commitment to pay them every year or so. That's almost a better way to celebrate this stuff than to just go virtual console. Because I wish there was both, because
Me
I know that
too.
there's a lot of hardcores that would just prefer to just own the digital rights to these games. But I don't know if the virtual console trailer has as much impact as something added to the service that you already are paying for, you know?
Absolutely. I see it from both perspectives. There, to me, I'm just like, there's only so many times I can buy Super Mario World before I'm just like, you know what, I can't do it anymore. I simply cannot. Sure, I'll subscribe to the service and then you'll lock me in for life, so I can have access to that game. But there was something exciting about, the virtual console, Wii Shop Wednesdays and all of that, like coming in, just seeing the new games pop in there. But I do feel like there is something uniquely special about getting the social media drop of, hey, Fire Emblem is now available on NSO, or even today when they were talking about, oh, here are the new features that are coming to N64 games. They got the CRT filter, you've got customizable controls. I was like, that's really cool. And the fact that they now integrate Nintendo Music as well, their own like little makeshift app, it just continues to add to this service that, while not perfect, I still think is one of the most valuable subscription models in gaming right now.
For sure. I think it's the most unique service out there out of the big three.
Yeah.
I mean, it obviously is a cheaper service. It's more affordable for families. And like, that's what I think kind of elevates it above, PlayStation Plus or Xbox Game Pass. It's just, this is a family-driven subscription. You get this for you and your kids to play together. And like, I do know family, like I said, and it's always about the family for me. It's like, I have family members that subscribe because, it comes with, older games that like my uncles grew up with, and they're showing their kids now, or, it's got that whole Nintendo Music thing. It's got Nintendo Today. It's got all these things that other companies aren't doing. And like, that's why I prefer Nintendo Switch Online and expansion pack, because it's honoring Nintendo's legacy in an impactful way that I feel like even PlayStation Plus can never do, or Xbox. It's just,
and I don't know if a virtual console would be able to do that either. I think that that constant conversation about these things added to the service is that's what we don't know that we're paying for, right? Like, we're paying for that info and that celebration. And I think if they were just virtual console drops, and trust me, I bought a ton of those for the 3DS and for the Wii U. I loved it, but I think I don't know. I think it's pretty rad that, because you forget, and then you load up the thing, and then it's just like, oh, I got all these other new games that I can go and check out. It's really cool.
And it opens up games you've never played before. Like, there are games on the expansion pack I would have never ever learned about. Like,
dude, and if they get Dreamcast and if they get Neo Geo,
like the possibility behind those, like, I feel like. Yeah, like if it has those, like, it's game over. Like, that's where I'll be flocking to play all these games. Like, I don't have to go to my Steam Deck anymore to play Dreamcast games or Neo Geo. I can boot up my Switch and play it the way it was intended, right? Like, it's emulated and supported by like these companies, right? So having that support means a lot to me. If you're selling a console and you have all the emulation legally ingrained in the console, I'm there day one. Like, I hate having to jump through hoops to play all my old games on Steam Deck, because it is a hassle. You have to find the files, you have to download them, you have to put them in the folders. Like, this is just, I want to play Crazy Taxi on Dreamcast. Okay, well, I'm just going to click the icon and it's ready to go. Like, it needs that level of curation that Nintendo is sorely lacking right now. And like, I know that I have a hope that it's going to happen. Like, I feel like they like we said, it's going to be their finesse era. We're going to see all these things come together.
Right, the finesse era. I love that, Bobby.
Era, well, they are getting better at their online infrastructure, their online curation, little by little. I mean, I'll also be this dead horse until the cows come home. But the fact that they're not doing achievements just breaks my heart. If Nintendo came out and they're like, hey, Tears of the Kingdom, or that's a bad excuse because they're just doing it for the one game. If the next
Super Mario Odyssey,
if Super Mario Odyssey 2 or whatever came out and they had like a full front achievement system baked into the ecosystem, it'd be game over for Xbox and PlayStation for this guy, because I would be spending so many hours in the Nintendo ecosystem because of that. But I'm shocked that they're still lagging behind on that. I am really happy that now you no longer have to use a cell phone to chat with your friends. That was a big mistake.
So let's recap here for a second, and I think discuss what the other guys aren't doing that Nintendo is doing very well. And I think the main thing is that they're honoring their past.
Oh my!
They're honoring the value. I mean, they're making space in their very packed Nintendo Directs to talk about tiny little games, that are literally like 14 megabytes or whatever, that take like seconds to download. And they are stealth dropping that stuff, and they're celebrating that as part of their subscription package. And so they're constantly reinforcing that. Then they do remakes of those games. And they've already understood that people want to bring their games everywhere with them, with the whole hybrid console. And so, it's surprising that PlayStation and Xbox haven't done more with their archives, because those companies have incredible software in their back catalogs, and Xbox, the original Xbox, it's virtually a dead machine at this point, right? It's very hard to find, working original Xbox platforms. Emulating the original Xbox stuff is a very CPU intensive kind of idea to begin with. The Xbox Series X went very far, but then it was like dead stop. It's like they hit a brick wall. And I feel like, Xbox should honor the whole thing. They should make backwards compatibility a very huge core tenet forever. And they should endeavor to get all of Xbox and Xbox 360 stuff available to their players forever, and especially as part of Game Pass, right? Like, people aren't going to go back and buy those games again. Include them and train people to give a crap about your whole history, which by now is like 20 plus years, right? 25 years.
And it's not
Same
only
thing
just
with PlayStation.
It's not only just supporting these old games, it's about keeping these franchises alive, which Nintendo has done
exactly.
Like, we are dealing and celebrating the same IPs, the same characters that we were when we were all kids in the 90s. Like, Donkey Kong
Paper
is
Mario,
still as exciting today as it was in 1989.
Paper Mario on Switch last year, one of my favorite experiences of 2024. It's the same game on the GameCube. It's not better than the GameCube game. It's the same game. I mean, it's just, like, it's beefed up with resolution. But that's okay, because we got to experience it again, and it's a perfect experience. And yes, like, honestly, that's the other thing that Nintendo's been doing, is like every scale of development. It's not like AAA every time. No. It's not, going out and risking it all, betting it all on, multiple millions of sales, or the company's doomed. There aren't. They're coming in at 2D pixelated F-Zero. They're coming in with partnered Tetris with all of these other brands. They're coming in with classic Fire Emblem on NSO at the same time as an anime influenced Fire Emblem Engage, which was amazing. They're remaking Wii U games to perfection, like up to Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Definitive Edition, which is impossible. And the other guys are like 6 months between releases, it feels like, or months between major releases. And I mean, look what happened with South of Midnight.
Oh,
like, what the hell was that? That's a great game. It's not perfect, but it's a great game. You can't even buy it physically. You can, like, it comes out, there's all the like months and months of hype and expectation for it, and then it's gone. It's just
Hi-Fi Rush.
Hi-Fi
Rush, poof.
Doom Eternal is another one too. I mean,
well, Doom Eternal at least is on other platforms.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for the announcement that it'll be on Switch too. Doom Eternal is amazing.
It's a great game.
Or Doom, the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
I also love that. Yeah,
but it's crazy to me that we can look at the Nintendo Switch, look at the entire era, and they somehow made Splatoon just as important as Kirby, which has a history, a legacy with Nintendo, and yet you can put both of those characters, the Inklings with Kirby, and modern audiences, whether old or new, look at both of them and they're like, no, those are proper Nintendo characters.
Right. And every game that they release, no matter how big or small, is curated and treated like, here's our present to you, and we hope you enjoy it. And I feel too that Nintendo has learned this over the years, is that they don't know what's going to work. They don't always know what's going to, like, Fire Emblem had so many kicks at it before it became a juggernaut platform, a juggernaut franchise. Yeah, it took a long time. And
2012
Pokemon. Yeah, and Pokemon, I was there for them announcing Pokemon and launching Pokemon, and like they had an idea because it was doing well in Japan, but they didn't know for sure that it was going to become everything, you know. And so I think that there's a deep respect for that whole process, and like let's experiment and let's try, you know. And I don't know. I feel like the other guys have so deeply invested in what the sort of external brand opportunities might be on each of these different massive experiences. And I love those games for sure. But I mean, one of the ideas that I had after seeing that Blumhouse game last year with the play that looks like a PlayStation 1. I forget the name of the game right
Oh
now,
my
but it looks
goodness. I
like a
know the one
PlayStation
you're
1
talking
game.
about. It's
Yeah.
with VHS kind of pixelated.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought, why the hell isn't Sony re-releasing PlayStation 1 games with better controls, with modern controls?
Yep.
That's all they would have to do. Refresh them, repackage them, sell them again. You know, maybe clean up a little bit of clipping or whatever, pay developers, you know, $100,000 or something like that to do some cleanup and patchwork and port it and celebrate your freaking history and sell the games. Don't just bury it inside of a menu that is internally suffering, you know, insufferable to kind of dive through. And half the time they don't even place what actual console these original games were released for,
right.
You know, in their menu trees. Like they're just sitting on all of this stuff, and we're waiting for them to launch these massive AAA games, you know, and sometimes like months and months and months of wait. It seems crazy. It seems antithetical to the idea that they are a business of distributing video games on a continuous basis and wanting us to buy into their games. You know, I think the live service stuff isn't playing out the way that all of these companies have bet on, and it's because we don't have the time. People just don't have the time to play 15 or 20 different live service games.
People are locked into Fortnite. They know they have their forever game. They have Call of Duty. They have Fortnite. They have, you know, Counter-Strike. They're not looking for a new thing.
Right? I mean,
and so what do these companies have? What does Sony and Xbox have that Nintendo knows that they have, and they're taking advantage of it? Library. And their archive and their love of these different properties, and they're finding ways to get them to people. And it shocks me that Sony and Nintendo or Sony and Xbox aren't doing the same thing.
It pains me that we have no new Jack and Daxter or Sly Cooper or Twisted Metal.
Yep.
Because those games, when I remember like how big Twisted Metal 2 was, when that game launched,
the
whole neighborhood would gather and play together. And like you have the perfect tie-in with the TV show now, and there's no game. There's nothing. There's not even like there's no way I can even play Twisted Metal Black on my PlayStation. And I would pay dollars for you know, like a brand new Gravity Rush or anything like that. These games that we've, you know, knew growing up, they're nowhere to be found. Like there's no new Killzone. Like when's the last time we had a Siren or a SOCOM or I would even say a new Medieval. They did that remake a couple years ago, and then that they just fizzled out. Like I know it's like a very niche series, but like there's a market for that. Like
it's working for Nintendo. That's the thing that I always say. And you're right. And they have niches, and they sort of corral their niches, and they've figured out the financing on it. You know, they're not AAAing every single thing.
I feel Sony and Microsoft lost the plot. Like they put all their eggs in the basket of it needs to look really good, and I don't need games to look, you know, photorealistic. I just want a game that plays well, has some color to it, and like it holds me for 20 hours. Like I'm good at that point. Having you know, like I just finished Assassin's Creed Shadows. I'm on the platinum. 185 hours later, and like I'm at this point ready to pull my hair out because it's like, what am I doing? And it's like,
you know, Nintendo has those games too. I was feeling that way at the end of Tears of the Kingdom. I was like, okay, I'm 200 hours into this. I'm finishing the game now. I am never coming back to this.
No, never again. I can't do it. I can't do another Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. Give me something more condensed. I need it.
You know, it's not why I feel like those games have that longevity that works is just because it's the mechanics and the physics, right? Like the stuff that we see online from people in Japan using like the whatever it is, the powers there. There's no other game that does it like that. Like the physics behind those is worth spending, like,
it is fun,
30 hours to learn them, because like I've seen some really cool stuff. People are building full-on Voltron suits in Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, and it's like, okay, I can see why. But like Assassin's Creed Shadows, good game. It loses its glitter pretty quickly. Like 35 hours, like I was ready to call it a day. I'm like, that's what I miss. It's just, I don't need a massive open world. I just need an Uncharted level game. Something that's,
well, you know what we need is we need the big ones. We need the beautiful ones. And as storytellers about the video game industry, we all benefit from those because we can point to those titles and show people outside of games who make tiny little bits of time for games that these are works of art you should be paying attention to. But we need also the smaller scale, tighter experiences that don't close down studios, like
specifically today.
Sustainability.
Yeah.
That's all we need is sustainability. So
we need double A's, man. And especially honestly, if these things are about subscription inventory at this point, right? Like that's honestly what Sony and Xbox are kind of banking on for their futures is Xbox to a bigger degree, but they're banking on people. But even on the PlayStation Store, it's very skewed to signing up to PlayStation Plus. I've noticed, like when I go on there, it's like a little bit of a maze to figure out where do you buy something and how do I potentially own this. And I'm constant, which I'm fine with. I like the subscription thing, but I also feel with subscription, again, it's a lot of relying on indies who are struggling for attention out there. And then waiting for these AAAs. And in fact, I think that Sony and Xbox should take it upon themselves to look at what success Nintendo has had at coming in at every scale and celebrating every. They don't need to make a video about the features in their N64 content, but they do, right?
Yep.
And I don't think we see the same thing. And Sony's packaged a bunch of their PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, and you can stream PS3 games on their PS Plus tiers, which is great, but they never talk about them, and they never make separate videos about them, and they never tell us why we should care that they're there, and we should have a day to celebrate them. And then yet they go and they make Astrobot, which is like this. That was the thing that pissed me off about Astrobot. I love the game, but it was like, where are these games?
Right.
Why are we celebrating all these?
Even a mention of graveyard. Where's the history here? Where's the legacy of any of these characters? Nothing of it. Yeah.
They were just like, here's Astrobot. Here's what we used to do. By the way, this is what.
Here's what we used to do. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no new Ape Escape of all things. Like, how do we have no new Ape Escape? Like, everyone I know has some kind of Ape Escape story, and it's like, it would be a beautiful game to have on PlayStation Plus, for example. And it's just like,
Well, hopefully everybody's learning this, because I think all these studios closing because of these live service gambles is, it's terrible. Games have gotten too big and unwieldy, and that's terrible. And also, there's just a lot of stock play, and there's a lot of companies trying to sort of make room for AI to take over of seats, which sucks.
Sure.
There's a lot of duplicitous bullshit happening, but hopefully what is coming out of this, because I think we're about to see Nintendo crush it again with the Switch 2, and the handhelds are going to be coming from the other guys, but hopefully out of all of this is like this reassessment of the value of the sort of mid-size and the history, and getting that material and that content to people in an easier way.
I agree. And I think we are going to see that. I think that Nintendo's really going to drive that all home, because I think that right now they are on top, and they're doing it in a very sustainable, a safe, and like we never hear about Nintendo closures. We never really hear, and I know it's a lot of it's secrecy. Never hear about canceled projects. It's just, here's what we have. We're delivering. It's all of great quality for the most part, 99% of the time, they don't really miss. Maybe Pokemon is the odd example here and there with performance-wise, but everything, it just feels so sustainable. Their business practices are leagues ahead of the Western companies and even PlayStation as well. So I think that for any of the publishers,
you know what it
they've
is?
got to be
They're
looking
not
at Nintendo.
siloed. Yeah,
No.
they're not siloed. They're a game company, you know,
Exactly.
and it's been this like huge effort for them to think outside the box with their music stuff and their online stuff and their theme parks and their movies. Like that's been a really big kind of, you know, like uncomfortable amount of internal growth from their core space of what they've always thought about, which is we make this beautiful interactive toy. Here you go. We hope you like it. And then we're working on our next one, you know? And so they have grown based on their success, obviously, but it has come out of this organic kind of like hard lessons learned over time, and also an appreciation for their core, you know? And I feel like PlayStation and Xbox
trends. They're not chasing trends. They're saying, okay,
chase trends. Exactly.
Yeah. Here's Mario Kart World. It's not an online service. It's not a games as a service. It's our version of an online game. You play with 24 friends or 24 members of the community. You're having fun. You're doing this. It's not, hey, pay $5.99 and unlock a burger skin for Princess Peach, or, you know, rank up 20 levels and you get, you know, Wario smoking a cigarette. Like it's just Nintendo doing what Nintendo
was
does.
Weird when they did the Mercedes partnership, though.
That is true. You are right there.
That was freaking weird.
They were teetering there. Absolutely. But they're not chasing trends. They're not chasing this online, let's get MOBA, let's get our version of Fortnite or, you know, Counter-Strike going. We're sticking to our guns. Let's prove the IP. Let's keep the IP alive and invested. And then let's get you over to our theme park at Universal, because that's where you're really going to spend the money. If you care about Mario so much on your Nintendo Switch, you're going to go out, you're going to convince your parents, or you're going to be parents and want to go spend thousands of dollars to get out to Universal. You're going to spend $50 to go to the movies. You're going to spend another $30 to own the movie. And I think that's the long play. It's commit to the IP, get them invested, and keep them invested.
I don't know, man. I feel like they benefit from all of that, but it's to drive people back to games. I think that they, and I don't know if Sony and Microsoft, because they are siloed entities, you know, like they're owned by much bigger components. PlayStation has become its most profitable division at Sony, but they have a movie studio and they've got investments into branding like crazy, and you know, they have the rights to Spider-Man. So they've got all of this top level commercialization outside of video games that is incredible. Plus all the hardware and the technology that they focus on. All of that is incredibly important to them. And I feel like internally at PlayStation, they should be focused on, and I don't want to drag PlayStation. I love the company, and you know, PlayStation was the company that I was able to sell Electric Playground based on, you know, that they were committed. Sony was committing to video games. I just want to feel that again. I want to feel like Sony is committing to video games, not customer engagement and subscription numbers, and like commit to video games in the way that Nintendo has been committing to video games, and Microsoft too. Like I think Phil is fantastic, and there's great people over there. But it's been like this shotgun blast of acquisitions and purchases, and we've been waiting for some of that to crystallize. But now we need to see. And last year, Jesus, that showcase that they had last year was one of the best things I've ever seen.
Oh my goodness, yeah,
it was unbelievable. But now we need to see that sort of commitment, big and small, not just like tree branches to the indies, but like, no, we're paying for this. We want you guys in at every single level. I mean, that whole thing with Hi-Fi Rush was just abominable, and like they still need to make back. And honestly, South of Midnight I think was really let down. Like there is no collector's edition. I don't think there's no like physical, like
nothing.
That should have been it's such a unique little property. Like there's nothing like South of Midnight, and it should have been a hugely cool celebration of that. Even if the game is a 7.5, the fact it was made is so freaking cool, and the story behind it is so freaking cool. That should have mattered.
Especially when it came like a month or two before Sinners. Like
yeah,
everything about that, like they dropped the ball on that. It's missing that zeitgeist and knowing what they were sitting on. It was very upsetting.
Yep. Agreed.
I do want to get to some user or listener not questions, but anecdotes and stories before we start wrapping up, because this has been a great conversation. But I do want to throw it over to Matt _ Silver Soul, who said, I remember getting Breath of the Wild on Wii U and instantly knowing I had to immediately get a Switch. Managed to lock one down and it went with me everywhere. Grocery store, the Switch. Mall with the wife, the Switch. It was awesome having a handheld on the go again. Haven't had that feeling since the early DS days. And I couldn't agree more. I was actually a late adopter to the Switch. I was very bullish. I was because I didn't like the Wii U enough. And I thought, hey, I already invested into this platform that just felt like it did me dirty in a few ways. I bought Breath of the Wild on it. I was like, I'm fully committing to playing it on the Wii U. It's the swan song, and then I get to just finally put it away. And no, I definitely feel mad on this. But as soon as I started playing it on the Wii, I was like, nah, I should have gotten this on the Switch. I screwed myself over here. And now, especially knowing that there was forward compatibility, my save is locked on the Wii U. It's never coming over. And we were just talking about it. I'm never playing Breath of the Wild again. I put in my 150 hours into that game.
Yeah.
That upgrade pack is never going to get purchased by me.
I think Breath is it's a smaller game. It's a more contained experience, but I think it's probably the more replayable because of that. I think Tears is the better screw around and just experiment type of game, but to actually play through the game, I think I could probably do that with Breath again. And I'd probably just want to reach a point in Tears where I could fiddle with the systems and then call it a day, because that took forever to finish. But Breath, I am looking forward to replaying it in its enhanced form on the Switch. I definitely want to check that out.
And then throwing it over to Chris Zeiser, he said, Nintendo Switch launched weeks before graduating college and starting my internship. It felt like the best gift ever. My favorite memory was getting a tour of the Nintendo booth at E3 2019 and demoing 3 amazing games, Link's Awakening, Pokemon, and Luigi's Mansion 3, respectively. During my visit, I had the tremendous honor of meeting Charles Martinet and had the opportunity to sit down with Nintendo about their announcements that week in my first ever interview. What a hell of a year to go out to E3, demo those games, and then chat with Nintendo.
Were you guys there?
No, I was not.
The Luigi's Mansion 3 booth was something else. That was one of the high out of all the 25 E3s that I went to. That was one of the most memorable booths ever. They built a whole haunted house experience. The game was unbelievable. By the way,
they brought a lot of it to Toronto for their fall event right afterwards, and so they had it set up. And I can't remember. I don't remember where the venue was, but it was almost structured like it was an older house, and they almost structured it as a haunted house with, like, the shifting mirrors and stuff like that. And then they had the ghosts and everything. And it was really, really rad.
Amazing game.
Yeah. Oh, I love that game.
Shout out to Chris. Good call back there, buddy.
Yeah. And then finally throwing it to John 32. When it was first announced, the Switch felt like the realization of every 9-year-old's dream, who's decades ago hated having to stop playing their NES because they had to go out with family, and who routinely left their NES on pause screens for hours to avoid losing game progress. I remember those days. Those were nightmarish days walking away from them. But reflecting back, what it really did was rekindle my love for gaming in a more deep and significant way by providing the flexibility to play wherever and whenever. The Switch removed barriers and increased exposure to new genres and IP. In times of hardship over the past 8 years, where access to a PC or console weren't always possible, the Switch allowed for the gaming journey to continue uninterrupted. And I couldn't agree more.
Beautifully said. Yeah, absolutely. I have this crazy story about how the desire to play anywhere was so profound for me, and it's Nintendo related. And obviously they had a great, chunk of awesome handhelds that I loved, all of them. They were all incredible, especially Game Boy Advance. But I bought the Nintendo 64 in LA. We went on a road trip. I think it was to market the show. I think we were visiting with broadcasters. And so I bought an import Japanese Nintendo 64 in LA, and
Nice.
we drove. And so we were on the drive back to Vancouver up the coast of the US, and we were staying in motels along the way. And it was the console and Mario 64 were sitting there. I could not play these things. I wanted so bad to play them. So I tried to hook it up to the hotel TV. And back in those days, they didn't have inputs at all. Like, it was coax cable that you screwed in. There was no, so, and the only way to play the N64 was to plug in the RCA jacks. The only thing that I had that I could plug into was an old Handycam where the eyepiece was black and white. And so I plugged in the N64 into the camera, and I played Mario 64 in the eyepiece of the camera in black and white. And I'm like, that's
incredible.
I wanted to play it so bad, and that's how I started my Mario 64 journey.
You see the big scale of the castle. You're getting invited in. You're supposed to be like, wow, it's everything I imagined, and you're there just.
It's like a 1-inch screen in black and white.
Yep.
The worst.
The worst way to experience it. Yeah.
So the Switch, revelation, like dream come true.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been a great discussion talking about at least, the first half, the first 2/3 of the Nintendo Switch life cycle. There's a lot more to cover, but we'll be covering that in another episode. But Victor, I just want to say thank you so much for coming out, talking about the Switch, regaling us with some of your stories and insights and perspectives on the Nintendo Switch. What do you have going on currently? What do you have coming up? What's going on in your life?
Well, I'm going to be deep into Switch 2 coverage, streaming and reviewing as much of the launch content as possible. I can't wait to get the device in and test everything out and play stuff online. I'll see you guys on the track in Mario Kart World for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm actually putting a video together right now about the Nintendo Switch and saying goodbye to it. And I've got a bunch of people, Bobby's in the piece, that have contributed videos. So I'm going to be putting all of that together, and I've shot a little bit of that stuff. So that's going to launch either end of this week or early next week. And then there's lots of other reviews, and I'll be streaming the Summer Game Fest stuff. I'm not going to the Summer Game Fest this year, but I'll be streaming about it and talking about it and reviewing all the Switch 2 madness, man. And then Death Stranding 2 is imminent.
Right around the corner. Absolutely. I know it just never stops.
No.
And Bobby, how about yourself? Where can people keep up with you, keep up with the website, everything else?
Of course, yeah. So consolecreatures.com, YouTube, TikTok, Spotify. We're going to be doing Switch 2 coverage. We've got Death Stranding 2. We've got Mario Kart World. Anything that's coming out in the next 4 months, check on the website. We're going to try and cover as much as we can, and we're going to do it because we love video games.
That's right.
Big time.
Yep. As for me, you can find me across the internet at Asvikvari. Right now, currently helping put together Pixel Power Play with friend of the show, Marcel D. It's, people are always saying, we want more Canadian events. And we're doing it. We just said we might as well just do it ourselves. We're Thanos in this entire endeavor. So June 14th, we're going to be hosting a in-person event in Toronto where developers can come out, show their upcoming games. We've got a catalog of developers who are coming out and supporting us, as well as some sponsors. But for people who cannot show up, because I know Toronto's not all that local for so many people, we are going to have a live stream on the front page on Twitch during the entire day. So that's going to be a lot of fun, showing some trailers, showing some interviews. It's going to be hosted by, again, friend of the show, Camille Salazar-Hadaway. That's going to be a ton of fun. But yeah, as for me, I'm just looking forward to the Nintendo Switch 2, doing, Summer Game Fest. We're going to be doing some breakdowns over here on the podcast, and then Death Stranding 2 as well. I'm currently replaying the first Death Stranding, hoping to do a little retrospective piece in the lead up to the sequel, because I feel like a lot of people have kind of either glossed over or maybe have forgotten how special of a game this is. And I really just want to touch base with some people who are currently playing it, currently catching up just like me and doing their homework.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool game.
Yeah, absolutely. But appreciate everyone for tuning in, providing their anecdotes and insights and stories. And we'll be back next week with more discussions on the Nintendo Switch. But until then, we'll see ya. Bye.